Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Let's Talk. And as always, I'm here, Joe Emilio, with a guest. This time I have Ernst Van Zyl, and some of you may know him as Conscious Caracal. Now, before I continue, he is a fascinating dude. I really recommend that you guys go check out his channel, Conscious Caracal. I have left a link in the description below, as well as follow him on Twitter because he's a very honest guy, which is what I love most about him. Ernest, how are you doing?
Thank you very much, Joe. A very humbling introduction you gave me there. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on your show. I'm looking forward to the conversation, and I'm always willing to reach out when anyone wants to talk to me. I always see it as very flattering. But yeah, I enjoy analyzing what I see around me, and if someone could learn something from what I have to say, that's even more excellent. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Fantastic. All right, so before we get into the main topic for tonight, why don't you tell my viewers, or for those who don't know, exactly what you do and what you've studied?
All right. So I studied at the University of Stellenbosch. I got my degree in political science, philosophy, and economics, and then I got a further honors degree in political science. And last year I started working for AfriForum, the South African civil rights organization, and I've been working for AfriForum since. I work in the campaign department, and I do strategy and content. So a lot of the campaigns that you see from AfriForum, I was one of the guys behind it to help design it and to make sure what form it will take. But yeah, other than that, I write opinion pieces for Politics Web and for Marilla Media, and I also am like you said, vocal on Twitter in regards to economics and politics and South African politics specifically, and the news. And I also do that on my YouTube channel, where I also make content relevant to it, and I interview interesting people from across the world on topics that I find interesting, and I think that I want to amplify some of those voices. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
I have been enjoying your stuff for a very long time. I'm happy that you made the channel. There's a lot of interesting content on your channel, especially the videos that you upload. Very great production and very interesting topics that I think everyone needs to talk about. Not necessarily, agree with you per se, but at least, you're bringing some issues to the forefront. And we will talk more about your channel. But right now, I really want to talk about, because you studied political science. So I really wanted to ask you, what's your view on what happened this past week when when Parliament, or the courts, I believe, ruled that the current electoral, or part of the electoral, what's it called? I don't know.
Electoral Act.
Yes, part of it was unconstitutional. What's your opinion on that?
I think it's interesting times. I think it opens up to a lot of new possibilities for the South African electorate, where you're not just going to be trapped in this paradigm where you have to choose between different parties, and those parties get to choose who the leader is going to be. I mean, when you vote for the ANC, you don't know who they're going to make their leader.
Yeah.
When you vote for the DA, you don't know who they're going to make their leader in a few years or whatever. They can change it. I mean, just look at what happened to Thabo Mbeki. You might have been the biggest Mbeki fan, but not the biggest Zuma fan, but you didn't have a say in the matter that they replaced Thabo Mbeki with Jacob Zuma. Yeah. So I think this creates a new milieu or a new environment where you're going to be able to vote for who you want, for a personality, for a leader, rather than a party itself. And I think it opens some very interesting possibilities. I think you're going to see some funny stuff happen. I think you're going to see some candidates that might be a bit of a joke, a bit of a parody, and they might even be taking themselves very seriously and not viewing it as a joke. But I do think we're going to see some interesting stuff. Maybe some strong leader characters, people that have a humble background, people with sound principles, that have shown themselves to have sound principles, but that don't really fit into that party politics mold. So they might get an opportunity now to really make an impact and put themselves out there, where they wouldn't have had in the past under the previous model of you have to be part of a party, and first you have to fight for the leadership within that party, and then you can start really making changes. So I think this completely changes the ball game, and you might see some very interesting but also some very funny results because of it.
I from an American point of view, right? Because as I told you off air, I was born in the States, moved to Egypt, moved here. So from an American point of view, as someone who is used to the idea that we vote for an individual rather than a, I mean, obviously we vote for parties and stuff, but the individual usually represents the party in the States. So, we elect the guys who we see as we go through the process. We're like, okay, cool. So these are the candidates. Which ones do we like in the Republican, and which ones do we like in the Democrats? And then everybody votes, and then eventually it gets narrowed down through the debates and all that stuff. Blah blah blah. So I'm used to that idea of like, boom. Once we have like now we have Trump and we have Biden. Now I'm used to that. I'm like, cool. It's a person, policies. This is what they did. And this is what their party, Republican or Democrat, is going to bring to the table. So I'm very, very excited for South Africa to be in that same situation. My question, though, is what do you think is going to happen to parties, though? Because, like in America, it's Republican, Democrat. That's pretty much it.
Right.
Where here you have endless.
Well, firstly, I think an unfortunate result of it going to be, I think the party landscape is going to become even more bloated. I think there's just going to be more and more parties and more leaders trying to vie for people's vote. But I think that will dissipate over time as the dust starts settling. But I think something positive that will happen is that this old model of the party chooses the leader is going to make it much harder for a party or parties are going to think more seriously and earnestly about who they appoint as their leaders, seeing as some other leader can just rise up and say, well, are you going to go with this party where you don't know who's going to be in charge of it in a few years' time, or do you want to vote for me and know that by my end of my first term, I'm still going to be in charge? I think that's going to be a strong sentiment for a lot of South Africans, and it's human nature. Human nature isn't really to support parties. Human nature is to support a leader, whether that leader be a king or a president or a tribe leader or whatever, how far you want to go back in history. That's always been part of human history, is to coalesce around a leader or a collection of leaders, but not to the extent of a political party where it's almost run like a business. I mean, look at, for example, some of these political parties in South Africa. I mean, in the US, it's so clear. If you look at the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they're pretty much corporations. It's no other way of looking at it. In South Africa, it's a bit more subtle because we haven't reached that stage of democracy where you are in regards to this corporatized democracy, where every election is more expensive than the last. And it's almost the election cycle. I don't know how long your election cycle starts, like a year or 2 years before the vote. It's very bizarre stuff.
Yeah.
But that encourages that corporatization of the elections even more.
Big money goes into it.
And then parties start being run like corporations. And I think in South Africa, there's already that element of parties being run like a business. And I think this is going to shake things up in regards to you're going to have to make sure your party runs a much cleaner and smoother ship than previously, because some oak can just rise up and say, well, I don't like this political party system. I think it's holding us back. Rather vote for a leader like me that you will know at the end of my term I will still be in charge and I will still be backing the same principles that I did at the beginning. In contrast to a lot of these political parties that just go with the flow and just do whatever the polls say they should do. And I think that's something we've seen ample example of in South Africa, and specifically with the Democratic Alliance. I hope they change their course, but in the past few years, it seems the Democratic Alliance has been way too obsessed with the polling, whatever the internal polling says. And they will just change their principles on a dime to just try and capture as many votes as possible, rather than sticking to a tried and true model of sticking to your principles and saying, this is what our party is about. This is when you vote for our party, this is what you'll get.
Yes.
And I think that's easier for an individual than a party, because a party is much more complex and is much more at the whim of all these tides of opinion, while an individual can say, I will be a good leader and I will stick to my principles and I will never betray my principles. I think there's just a little bit more certainty there than a party structure.
Absolutely. And also, like, I think one of the most important things they said on the news is that the individual can be held accountable as well. So it's not like this guy can be, the party won't be able to hide him as easily if someone, like, for example, Zuma, who now is basically running, ducking, diving, and obviously the ANC is doing everything they can in their power to maybe protect him as much as possible and play games. And I don't know. It's. I mean, with Zuma, we haven't. I don't know what the last update with Zuma was. And that's a big problem. This guy got away with a lot, and he can't be held. Well, he is. We are trying to hold him accountable, but it's difficult. So yeah, I think the future of politics in South Africa. I mean, they said that they have 24 months to amend this. Help me out with the term. What's it technically?
The Electoral Act.
Yes, they have 24 months to amend that. Do you think that we will see this basically in the next elections? People just coming up and saying, vote for me?
Unfortunately, I don't know enough about constitutional law to really have a glass ball or crystal ball in regards to seeing that future. I think there are some very knowledgeable people that you can ask about it. I mean, Aris Roots that I work for will be able to give a much more educated guess. My guess as a layman would be that this is going to still take a long while. I don't think it's going to be the next election where this is already in place. I think this is just a very small step in a certain direction. But like I said, that's my layman's guess. I wish I had the constitutional law background to give you a bit more of an idea there. But I do think it's an interesting development. It sure seems to have caused quite a ruckus, and a lot of people are talking and debating about it. So that gives me an indication that maybe this isn't just some trivial thing, and maybe it can have down the line some interesting impacts. But we're going to have to wait and see. I think it's going to be a matter of not trying to predict, but rather waiting and seeing what happens, and then you can when things start falling in place, you can make some more concrete observations about it.
All right. Well, seeing as you studied political science, I would like to get your opinion on this comment that we have in the chats. And by the way, those of you that are watching, thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said before, please, if you haven't yet, go check out Ernest's channel, Conscious Caracal. Very cool stuff on there. The link is in the description, and his Twitter. So there's a comment here from, and you'll have to excuse me, I'm terrible with names, Marquard Dirk Pinar, who says, the future of SA politics is imperialism versus self-determination. It is not left versus right anymore. Divided party unites left and right, this is his party that he's talking about, in one party for self-determination in left and right regions.
All right, let me just see if I can get that comment on the screen. There we go. Right, divided party. Okay, I don't know if he's talking in a South African context or where that party is, but anyway, yeah.
It is. He has a party called the Divided Party, which is being renamed to the Federal Party now.
All right. No, okay, cool. I get what he's saying. All right. So my thoughts there would be yes. I think politics is much more complicated than right versus left, or conservative versus liberal, or leftist versus whatever. I do think that is a very apt observation. I think we are living in a paradigm today where it's much more freedom versus authoritarianism, community versus the state. I mean, you can draw a lot of divides in terms of where the fight has shifted. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be easier said than done to unite a collection of people under a broad church of this idea, or a broad umbrella of this idea that whether you're right or left, if you support X or Y, whatever your core tenets of your party is going to be, it's going to be hard, because you're going to essentially have to put liberals, leftists, conservatives, and right-wingers under the same church or the same banner. And in the past, if that was as easy, I'm not saying it's impossible, but if that was as easy, you would have seen a lot more of it happen throughout history. And eventually those types of broad church parties tend to devolve into factional fighting, as we see with the ANC. I mean, the ANC is an example of that type of broad church party miracle happening. where you have this big umbrella party that covers a bunch of different facets of the political spectrum and people from all walks of the political spectrum. But then at the same time, now 26 years down the line, you get this infighting, this factional infighting of the South African Communist Party fighting the reformers, or let's say rather the Marxists within the ANC fighting the reformers, which are the Cyril Ramaphosa's. So you get this type of internal instability, which unfortunately happens when you don't define your party by strict left or right or put them on that spectrum. Even though I do agree that it's the battle that we're fighting now is much bigger than left versus right. But at the same time, you're going to still have to work within that divide broadly or roughly if you want to have success, I would say. You can see it in America. I mean, the Republicans and the Democrats aren't a perfect divide between left versus right, but it is in general. In general, the Democrats are on the left, the Republicans are on the right, but there's a lot of ideological diversity within either side. So I do think you're going to still have to adhere to that type of spectrum, even though there's a lot bigger things than it going on. But yeah, a very interesting comment there from. I'm also going to struggle to say his name, Merquad.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I'm actually going to have him on my show next week, I believe, next week Monday, to chat about his party, the Federal Party. He also wants to do secession.
Right.
Very quickly. What's your opinion on secession for the Western Cape? Because that seems to be a very hot topic at the moment. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah, such a hot topic that I've been asked that question twice in the span of 3 days.
Sorry, should I change the question?
No, I'll gladly answer. I'm a bit more realist when it comes to that. I would like to see a bit more from the secessionists in South Africa in that regard. Firstly, maybe I should just preface that with the fact that I have a lot of admiration for their boldness, a lot of respect for them going against the grain properly.
Yeah.
Really anti-establishment in your ideas. Kudos to that. But at the same time, I'm going to have to be frank and real. I can't see the ANC giving up a third of the country's landmass and a third of the economy just like that because you've held a referendum or because you had a protest or because you had a petition online. And we aren't even at that level yet. At the moment, the secessionist movement seem to be comprised of social media accounts and online petitions, but there hasn't been a single march, there hasn't been a single demonstration, there hasn't been something tangible. I think that's what's missing at the moment. There isn't that real world tangibility, and like I mentioned when I answered this question previously, it was on Jeremy Nell's German warfare show yesterday. Yeah. If you look at, for example, Catalonia, one of the most famous cases of attempted secession, the Catalonians in 2018 or 2019 or 2017, somewhere there, they were in the streets in their millions demanding secession. They even had a referendum. But what happened? The Spanish government just threw all their leaders in jail and laughed at their sentiments, and today you still don't have an independent Catalonia. So you had a secessionist movement there in Spain where you had literally millions of people in the streets demonstrating, and they couldn't get their secession. So my very honest and well-intentioned question would be to the people backing these types of ideas: how do you expect to get that in South Africa if you haven't done a demonstration or a march of that level? Not even talking millions of people in the streets, not even 100 strong demonstration or march. So I would like to see a bit more of a tangibility. Drop the online petitions, drop the retweet this to support secession. I don't think that's going to do a lot. What's really going to do a lot is if you start doing some real world tangible things. And I understand that takes time, that takes effort, that costs a lot more money. It's much easier to just set up an online petition, but it's that effort and that blood, sweat and tears you put into, and that extra mile you go to do that real world thing that really makes the change in the end. Well, that's my conviction on it. So all the best of luck to these types of movements. I like the boldness, I like the bravery. But I'm going to want to see a bit more, something more tangible.
That's fair, and I agree with you. I think it's cool to see these ideas happening, people talking about it, and all that stuff. And yes, it's a hot topic right now. But my worry, if I'm honest with you, and before I continue, I just want to correct myself because I don't want to give fake news. Mark Watt said Federal Party SA is not interested in secession, so my bad. My bad on
All
that.
right.
I apologize. But I still will have him on the show and we'll talk about his party. I want to know more about his party. So what I was saying was it's cool that these people are talking about it. It's cool that this is coming up and more people seem to be asking the question, if I can put it that way. My worry is like, yeah, cool, we're all upset with the government right now. I think we can all agree on that. So this is probably why we're all talking about it. Like you said now, where's the where's the real fight, because like, okay, you say like no one's marching, but we're on lockdown, so nobody really can march. So my question is, when
Yeah,
we're
but
done.
just maybe a quick thought before you continue. The secessionist movement thing has been going on for a number of years now. It's not a
True.
new thing. So they've been this talk. Well, it's accelerating now, but it's been a constant debate for at least 5 years. I mean, the Cape Party. But anyway, finish your thought, please.
But yeah, it's been there for 5 years. They've grown in numbers since then. So what I'm saying is, my worry is that once the lockdown is done, nothing happens. Like, I think if there's ever a time to do something like a march or like whatever to move it forward, it would be after the lockdown, to keep on going with that momentum, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, but that's why I'm being so frank. That's why I'm being so honest. Is that I have a lot of respect for the boldness, like I said, of these movements and these people and their ideas and the anti-establishment DNA that they are showing. It's really admirable. But at the same time, like I said, you are setting yourself up for disappointment if you think you're going to achieve anything because you had 100,000 people sign an online petition. I've seen online petitions of millions of signatures to bring back certain types of chips flavors, or to do trivial things like that. So unfortunately, I don't think those online petitions hold as much weight or authority as you think they do. I think rather you should start focusing on organizing in real world terms, and doing something tangible. I think it's possible to take those types of initiatives. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm very curious to see what these Oaks do and to see how successful or unsuccessful they are. But at the moment, I'm unfortunately going to have to say I'm not on the bandwagon. I'm not saying within our lifetime we'll see it. We'll have to see it. It will all depend on what you do next. It will all depend on what you do in the short term, medium, and long term.
Yeah.
And my best advice, maybe just a final thought there. I mentioned this on Germ's channel. What you need to, something that does gripe me a little bit is when I look at some of these maps that these Oaks draw in terms of what they want, a lot of these secessionist Oaks, whether they be Western Cape secession or whatever, they always draw these very generous maps for themselves. They're like, just give us Bloemfontein, Pretoria, Johannesburg, Durban, and Port Elizabeth, and Cape Town. You can have the rest. We just want that little bit. That's all we ask. So, and that will be my final thought then. You're going to have to understand the ANC is not going to give you anything. They're not going to give you anything. So the only way, and your fight needs to be a fight for freedom. Your fight needs to be a fight for independence, not a fight for resources, not a fight for wealth, not a fight for possessions, for freedom and for independence. And you need to start thinking in terms, not in terms of what we want and what we want to retain, but you need to start thinking in terms of what you are willing to give up. You need to not look and say, I want that slice of the pie, I want that slice of the pie, and you can have the rest. You need to start thinking in terms of how little of this pie can I have and still make a success of it and still survive. Because at the end of the day, what needs to be the most important to you needs to be your freedom and yourself, your being in charge of your own destiny. And if you're not willing to show those people that oppose you that you are willing to give up almost everything for that freedom, they're not going to take you seriously for 1 second. So stop with the pie in the sky dreaming. Stop thinking about just give us 30% of the country and we'll be happy. Start thinking in terms of you can, and I'm not being serious in this regard, but in terms of you can have 99% of the country. I just want my freedom. You can take everything away from me. I just want my freedom. And it's that type of idea that I want people to be driven by, not literally asking only for 1%. But that's the idea. You need to start showing how much you believe in your idea, not by asking, but by saying, I'm willing to give up this and this and this, but all I want is my freedom. And that's what's important. And I want that idea to be discussed a bit more and pondered a bit more and considered a bit more amongst these types of circles and people that share these ideas.
That's a very fair point, as a matter of fact. I had Jack Miller on my show not too long ago.
I've met Jack in real life. Nice guy.
Yeah, he's a very nice guy. And what I liked about him is, yes, he talks about the normal stuff that we hear with all these secession guys, but he had passion. There's a level of passion with him, and you can feel that energy even through a screen. I can imagine he's even more intense in person. And that's what him and I spoke after the show, and I said, like, I want it, like you're saying right now, I want to see that determination, that fight, that anger, I think it's missing with a lot of the people or politicians that we have now.
An online petition doesn't really scream anger.
Exactly.
An online petition says minor discomfort.
But it's so true. I mean, everyone was talking about the cigarette petition. That did nothing. That did absolutely
And hundreds
nothing.
of thousands of people signed it.
Yeah.
And you don't even hear about it in the news.
No.
It was just a little bit of a comfort.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm in solidarity with hundreds of thousands of my countrymen. That feels nice. Okay, great. But that's all you're going to get. We're still without our smokes, me being a smoker myself.
Sorry, man. Touchy subject. Yeah, but it's true. Like, I see often, like, what's that other petition about NDZ, firing NDZ? When I saw that, I was like, that is not going to do anything. Like we pretend like we're going to put our little signatures and maybe have, like, millions, and then NDZ is going to look at it and be like, oh, shame. Okay, I'll resign.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah. I'm going to give up my power and my millions because
But that's the
something.
thing, and that's why I want a lot of these oaks to be real in terms of, dude, they just found, like, huge natural gas reserves on the coast of the Western Cape.
Yep.
You put that big fat carrot in front of the ANC and you're like, I'm going to take it, and you're not going to get any of this. And you're going to allow me to do it because I have a referendum. I have a petition, and you put it in front of them. They're just going to piss on that piece of paper and laugh at you. Say, no, get out of here.
That's very true.
So, I don't want to discourage these oaks. Like I said, a lot of respect for your boldness, but you're going to have to start thinking in real terms. You're going to have to start thinking real brass tacks.
Whoa, don't apologize. Don't apologize, because what you say is very true, and I think a lot of people would agree with you. I mean, I saw comments on the Jack Miller interview that I did. He said exactly the same thing you're saying now. Maybe a little bit more rude, but saying the exact same thing you're saying now, which is, we're tired of this talk. We want action. We want something that we can get behind. And I did try and encourage that from Jack. And Jack, if you're watching this, I did. And this is what I'm talking about. And I don't mean to criticize Jack or anything. He's a great guy, and I love what he's standing for. Trust me, like you just said, that fight is hard, man. That fight is hard. Like, it is really, really, really hard.
It goes the same in politics as it does in business. Small risks, small rewards. Big risks, big rewards.
Exactly.
You're just gonna have to make that decision.
And who knows? Maybe our conversation now, this little conversation that we had, if Jack watches it or whoever else watches it, will be like, you know what? These guys are right. Let's flip and do something about it. I don't know. We'll see. But
like I said, I'm watching very curiously and intently to see what happens. And all the best to these oaks. I have a lot of admiration for a lot of them, especially the oaks putting their faces and their names behind the movement.
Exactly.
Excellent. Keep doing what you're doing, and don't let this pessimist discourage you. But I would like you to ponder that idea that I talked about earlier, about start thinking in terms of what you are willing to give up rather than in terms of what you want to gain or what you want to demand.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I did see this guy before on Marhobain. I think you pronounce it that way, Marhobain.
It's either Marubane or Marubane. But I'm pretty sure it's not Marubane.
Yeah, he's got a cool channel where he goes through the history of South Africa. I think you should check it out if you haven't. And anybody else who's watching, please go check it out. I've seen the first 2 episodes that he's
I
put
listened
down.
to his interview with Robin Kavanagh. Very interesting.
Yeah, there we go. So he says here about petitions. Petitions are, however, a good place to get mailing lists going, from which you can build a wider organization. Very
Yeah,
true.
fair point.
I've
Yeah.
often, but that's the thing. I've often wondered, right? Because here's the thing: when you do those that change.org thing, right, and then you sign the petition, there's always that part. Once you've signed it, it says, "Oh, donate whatever amount to the cause," and then I'm always like, what's going on here? Like, are we really?
But also not just that. Isn't Change.org just selling all your information
Probably.
behind the scenes? Like, oh, well, here's an entire list of South Africans that support this type of cause. If that information is valuable to you, your company, or your advertising company, we sell it to the highest bidder.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. I know that does happen. That does. People that have databases and stuff like that, they often sell to corporates, and it's worth a lot of money. I think we're giving people bad ideas right now.
Well, Facebook's already doing it. If you're on Facebook, dude, you don't have a right to complain about your data being sold, bro.
That's true. Okay, so Marhabain says it's actually koza word meaning burglar.
So then it is probably Marubane.
Marabani. Okay. All right. So before we went on air as well, I said that I was gonna let you know what my impression was of Afriform, or not my impression, but what I was fed. So remember, I wasn't born here, and when I came to South Africa, and before I got into politics, really, I was minding my own business, being a comedian, studying, all that stuff. And then when I started to venture into politics or start to focus on the news a little bit, obviously Ernest Roots was every now and again in the news. And I can't remember who it was, but I remember with circles of friends and stuff, they would say Afriform is racist. Like that's what they said, right? Now, I ignored it because, again, at that time I wasn't really into politics. But then recently when I started to get into it, and I watched... And I gotta tip my hat off to Ernest Roots, man. I really want to have him on my show because I'm actually a huge fan. Because I've watched nearly every interview he's had on any news platform, and the amount of abuse this man goes through, and yet he stands firm. And he's like almost a genius in the way he answers a question. It's like almost like a ninja way of doing it, and he's so good at it. He is so freaking good at it, and that's when I realized, I was like, wait a second. My friends used to say that this organization is racist, but when I do my research and I look up Afriform and stuff, they're doing good things. Why, besides media? I mean, obviously you guys have been fighting this fight for a while. I'm new to the game, but you guys have been fighting this fight for a while. If you meet someone who is maybe almost wary of you guys, do you guys have a way of speaking to the people and saying, the media says this, but we're not?
No, I understand completely that type of sentiment. I always ask them just to do a little thought experiment or to consider something. Firstly, if you don't know that our media is completely captured by the political establishment, then you've got another thing coming, and I want to tell you about a virus that's going around, maybe that you haven't heard about. It's really obvious that we've had media capture in South Africa, state capture. We know about that. People need to start talking about media capture, and it's you see it. You just see, for example, in 2018, when President Cyril Ramaphosa went in front of the UN and said there are no such thing as farm murders. Now, I can understand people debating the numbers, debating the severity, saying all the motives behind it. I can completely understand. But saying there is no such thing as farm murders happening in South Africa is just the most blatant lie you can imagine. I mean, there are farm murders in America. There are farm murders in every country. But to say something as ridiculous as that. And then the next day, News 24 comes out what the president meant with his comment. Like, are you his PR team, or are you supposed to be talking truth to power?
Yeah.
For example, just imagine you being with an American connection to you. Imagine in America if the president said something heinous, like he said, like, police brutality is a myth. There's never been any person that has ever been murdered by the police. That is a complete lie. He said something like that, and the next day the New York Times came out and said what the president actually meant, and it's just this big fluff piece on it. You'd think, damn, man, this media is completely captured by the establishment, by the ruling regime. And I think that's exactly what's happening in South Africa. But anyway, I'm getting off track in terms of you wanted a brief answer. So
you can be detailed, it's fine.
So I would tell them, okay, I'm assuming this person is a smart, like just a normal IQ person and not completely just dim. I'm like, you can see the loyalties between the media and the establishment. You can see what they're doing. You can see them polishing the ever-loving hell out of the image of the ruling party. What does AfriForum do? AfriForum goes up against the ruling party and we're one of the biggest thorns in their side. And then the next, whatever we do something against the government or we do something that inconveniences the government, the media comes to their rescue and in unison condemns AfriForum as this evil organization. Doesn't that just make you rub your chin just a little bit? Doesn't that just activate the almonds a little bit? If that doesn't just make you think a little bit, then you're completely lost. Then I don't think you're ever going to awake from your slumber. But just consider the connection between the media and the government, and AfriForum's chief opponent being the government. And then you see all these smear pieces about AfriForum that aren't even true. I mean, if they were criticizing us on genuine stuff, it would be another matter. But they are spreading outright lies. I mean, this whole lie about AfriForum telling people there's a white genocide in South Africa. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's nowhere in any of our reports or any of our documents or any of our media statements or anywhere on our website or in any interview ever done by me or Ernst Roots or Kali Kriel have we ever said that. But it's common knowledge, it seems, amongst a lot of people, and that's a lie that was spread by the media. We have evidence, many examples of media articles saying that we are spreading that type of idea, and that's why a lot of people believe it. But it's because the media are serving their masters. The media aren't your friends. The media aren't speaking truth to power. Those days are gone. The media only praise power because power pays very nice dividends. So that would be my short answer in terms of breaking the conditioning or showing someone the truth. I mean, and it's not a South African phenomenon. You see it across the world where people that are speaking truth to power, actual people taking on the establishment, are being smeared by the media and being just absolutely destroyed by the media in the most cruel and absolute just abhorrent ways. So it's not a thing that's unique to South Africa. The South African media have just learned from their cousins in other countries, and unfortunately media capture is not strictly a South African phenomenon. Media capture seems to be a global phenomenon. And it's something that's incrementally happened over the past few decades. And I mean, this is where cancel culture comes from as well. Where do you think this idea comes from? It's because the media encourages it. They love it. They want to see people cancel that they don't like and people that they disagree with. Why do you think you see articles like, for example, now this week, there was a wine company in South Africa that said something trivial like all wine matter as a joke on their social media. And then News24 wrote the article, wine manufacturer under fire for insensitive comments. Under fire, you cite like 3 comments on social media. But now because you said it, because News24 said it, that increases that puts a spotlight on this company and tells millions of people about this that would have never known about it. So if you or me one day say something that people want us cancelled for, then you will know that the media will want that because they want that. They smell that blood in the water. It gives them business. They've become tabloids. They've become tabloids that just serve their masters. And when people ask, why is cancel culture so bad today? It's because they encourage it. They love it. They want it. They want that drama. They want that blood. They want that blood sport of people being sacrificed on the altar of political correctness. And it's unfortunately something that's just become normalized. But it won't last forever. That's why I've been a bit grim now with my little rant, but I will end it on a good note, on a positive note, and a hopeful note. It's not going to last forever. The history of the world is full of episodes like this where you have book burners and people that want to stone the heretic. But it passes. In the end, good wins. Rationality wins over this type of mob mentality. So we just need to weather the storm, and we need people that are brave enough to do it, and people to stand up against it. When people say you're a racist or a bigot, and you know you're not, you say, no, I don't have to justify myself. I know I'm not. I know what I am. And you don't have to apologize for anything. And that's something I want to, an idea I want to spread. Because it's so easy to call someone a racist. It's so easy to call someone a bigot or a homophobe or whatever without evidence. And unfortunately, a lot of people eat it up. So we're just going to have more strong people coming forward and saying, no, I know what I am, and I'm not that. And I'm not going to let you label me.
Yeah, so basically, if someone was to call you, for example, a racist, I am not. I am not. Okay,
Yeah.
but hypothetically, would you stand up? Would you stand up and be like, and then proclaim that you're not? In obviously the most polite, obviously, because I believe that fighting violence with violence, is wrong. I don't agree with if you called me a swear word, whatever, asshole and stuff like that, I might call you an asshole as well. But then I'm not a fighter. I'm not. I'm gonna be like, Ernest, what did I do to upset you? Let's talk about it. And then if you still hate me, then okay, fine. I'm gonna be like, you know what? I'll leave you alone. You go your way, I go my way. We live our separate lives. There's no need for violence. I don't believe that violence is and hate speech. Fighting hate speech with hate speech, racism with racism. That never works. It's never going to work.
Exactly.
If anything, it's going to divide us even more. So, would you stand up if someone?
I've got some pretty damning evidence against me in the chat. Calman Saints TV says Aaron is wearing a two-tone shirt. That's a uniform of a racist. But yeah, no, man, I have to be a good example. I mean, I can't preach this idea of you need to be brave, you need to stand up against the mob, but not do it myself. So if I'm the target of a cancel campaign, or people go after me, and I know for a fact what I am and who I am, and they say something else, I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to apologize. I'm not even going to justify why I'm not, in terms of, oh, man, I'm not a racist here and here's why. That's what they want. They're just going to reject all that. I'm just going to say, no, that's not what I am, and I don't care what you label me, because I know what I am, and my friends know what I am, and my family know what I am. So I don't care about your labels. I don't care whatever you call me, and I don't care what you think of me. I can see that you're a malicious actor. I can see that you are trying to destroy me because you disagree with me. And I'm not going to take it, and I'm not even going to try and justify myself to you, because I don't care what you think of me. I don't care about your forgiveness. If you tell me I need to apologize for something some white person in the past that's not even my ancestor, because then the radical left will forgive me, or these black nationalists will forgive me. I don't care about your forgiveness, man. I don't want your forgiveness. You're an ideologue. You're possessed by ideology, an ideology of resentment. So I don't care what you think.
I like that.
That would be my short and sweet answer, and I'm going to keep it short and sweet from now on.
No. I enjoy your rants and your dude. Be as detailed as you want. I want you to be yourself. But I like what you just said there. Now I lost it, and it was in my mind. I was going to say I'm going to make it my bio.
The ideology of resentment.
Yes, I'm going to put that in my bio. That's an awesome line. Because it is this whole woke culture and cancel culture, and you know what really irritates me though is like you just said, this cancel culture, but even more so because I dealt with this in Egypt, right? So I was being an American. And people knowing that obviously they could hear I was an American, they could see I was an American, blah, 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 even though I look a little bit Egyptian. But when they started to talk to me, they're like, oh, your accent's funny. Where are you from? And I would say, America. And then immediately, and this is right after 9/11, I'm like 11 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old. Immediately, they hate me. They don't know me, but they label me now as
they don't even know your name.
Yeah, they just label me. You laugh, but it's true. They just label me as this evil person that wants everyone to die, and I need to look. I was bullied. I was harassed. It came to a point where I was scared to go to school. People who watch my channel know that I often speak about this, and just to give you an idea, after 9/11, our principal came out and gave a nice speech, but well, it wasn't that nice. It started nice, and then at the end ended it by saying all Americans deserved it, and people were celebrating the 9/11 incident or terrorist attack. They were going in the streets and basically having parades, celebrating this. So that's where I was at that time, and this is where I learned the whole thing. Like, you don't fight violence with violence and all that stuff. So for this cancel culture to be around and people to judge someone just because
you
they
see
have
parallels between that and what you experienced.
yeah, in South Africa, yeah, it's happening again. I see it happening again, and this cancel culture has just gotten worse. It seems. I thought it was gone, but I used to be. Here's the funny part. I used to be on the left side. Wow, shocker. I used to be on that side. I used to be in that camp, but I was.
And you started realizing they resent you as well because you're a male.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was weird. Like I wasn't really into politics, and I didn't really know where I really was. And then I think like a year, 2 years ago, especially like since load shedding and all that stuff, I started to get really angry with the government, and then I started to do research, and then I watched the Tainted Heroes and
Right.
What's that other one that you guys made?
Disrupted Land.
Disrupted Land and all that stuff, and then that like really opened my eyes, and I'm like, this is no. And then I realized, like, hold on a second, I'm not a left. Well, apparently, according to Google Compass, I'm a centrist authoritarian. I don't know if that's a good thing.
You're a radical centrist.
I don't know. That's according to Google. I don't know. But look, I just believe, and I think this is because of where I'm from and what I've lived in my life. Treat those how you want to be treated. And let's stop using history as a weapon and rather learn from it. That's what we should be doing. We should be learning. But I don't feel that we're learning. I feel that everybody's just, like you just said,
everything is just scorched earth. You
Yeah.
just want to destroy as much as possible of your enemies.
Yeah, and it's sad, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got nothing against anyone. I'm an open book. If someone doesn't like something I say, please reach out, message me, tell me, Joe, I didn't like what you said.
But that's what's so sad, Joe, is the fact that you're a comedian, you're a jester, you are the trickster. You should have full license to insult any holy cow you want.
I don't, not here.
I mean, but that's the role of the comedian. That's always been the role of the comedian, is that you kind of have this privileged license of you can make fun of the king. I mean, that's what the jester did. The jester made fun of the king because the king also wants to feel a bit human. And I think that's the role of the comedian. That should be the role of the comedian, to speak hard truths in a funny manner, so that it's not too unpalatable, but people can laugh at it, at the unfairness of reality, at the injustices in reality. But comedians kind of play that role, to talk about the hard things, but in a funny and a witty way.
You're right, but even back in the day when jesters could make fun of the king, they had to do it with caution. So, for example, let's use Cyril. Let's say he's the king, right? If I make a joke about Cyril's failures of the country in front of him, he'll have my head chopped off. But if I make fun of him for being a jolly fellow and like, Cyril's so awesome and funny.
You can't put on a face mask.
Yeah, exactly. They can't put on a face mask. That's cool. He finds that funny. We all find that funny. So there's like a limit to it, and that's and unfortunately it is true. It is true right now. Comedians, and there's a lot of comedians that are going to disagree with me. There's a lot of comedians that are going to say it's not true. But we are being censored. If we don't pan towards the populace, yeah, we're treated differently.
And it's not even sometimes government censorship; it's self-censorship.
Yes, absolutely.
Where you don't make a joke because you know someone's going to be offended by it and they're going to try and cancel you and ruin your entire life. Or
exactly.
Ruin your career.
Yep.
I mean, what's the thing? They've pretty much abolished the whole career of comedians in general, because then what's the comedy? Comedy, there's always going to be a butt of the joke. There's always going to be something offensive or someone that finds a joke offensive. But that's the thing. Comedy is funny because it has that edge to it. It's funny because you need to be able to laugh at yourself. Yes, sometimes you're going to be the butt of the joke, but other times you're not. Other times someone else is going to be the butt of the joke. That's what comedy does. That's why it's funny. I mean, you've probably been in that so many times, that situation where you joke with your mates about things. You're saying something that in any other context would be insulting, but they know you're making a joke. That's just how comedy works. Sometimes there has to be a butt of the joke. There has to be someone that's the loser in that regard, but it's not always going to be. Next time it's you. Next time it's someone else.
Every Friday, I just as like a venting thing for me and other comedians, and even people that have or people that are like on a Friday evening just want to vent a bit. I do a show, a roast. I call it a roast edition show, where basically comedians coming on the show, we roast each other, and then the audience who's watching, who's the same audience who may be watching now, can roast us, but we'll roast you back, and it's just this big, we're making fun of each other.
It's a bonding moment. It's an endearing moment. It's not negative. You're not trying to literally, like, seriously cut the other person.
Exactly. Oh man, we could talk about this for hours, really. But yeah, unfortunately, there is this kind of, I don't want to call it a movement, but there's this this thing that is happening now in the comedy industry and in South Africa for that matter. You're not allowed to say this, you're not allowed to say that, you can't say this, you can't say that. If you say that, all this. Also, I don't know if you saw that interview with Ronaldo House and Bianca. You see that? Yeah, like that like, how she defined racism, and then she had different definitions for different types of race. Look, I don't care if it's systematic racism. I don't care if it's national racism. Racism is racism, people. It all comes from racism. Like, it's all under the same tree. Why are we now debating different types of racism? I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I just see it as a weapon that people use. They don't want to debate. They just want to make sure that people understand their opponent is a racist, so therefore you don't have to listen to what they have to say. If they can't prove that you're a racist, then they just change the definition. To the point where we are almost at that point where we are kind of at that point where they just say, if you're white, you're inherently racist. Or if you're not black, you're inherently racist. An Egyptian can be racist to a black man, but a black man can't be racist to an Egyptian. That type of idea. And we're seeing it happen, but it's going to eat itself. It's going to destroy itself, because you can't keep drawing those types of lines and dividing until there's only one person that stands and says, I am the only pure human being. All of you are racists. I am the true non-racist. That's where it's going. That's where this purity spiral is going. It always happens. It happens throughout history. Where you see these types of purity spirals, where there be people that are part of a cult that want to show that they are the best cultist, or people that are part of some type of political movement to show that they are the biggest loyalist to this movement. It's always going to happen. It's always going to be the purity spiral, where in the end the movement collapses under its own like snobby weight. Where it became so purist, and so you have to be exactly like this or you're not a good follower of this movement, that in the end nobody can live up to those standards, and the movement collapses. And that's where we're moving with this whole cancel culture, leftist stuff that we're seeing.
I do agree with you that we're seeing quite a few repeats of history, because I think I was discussing it with Quentin, and I hope he's still watching. He was watching earlier. Hello, Quentin. I think we touched on it yesterday. Like right now, there's this kind of thing where everyone's tearing down monuments and tearing down historical statues and stuff like that. The Romans did the same thing to the Egyptians. The Romans literally tried to erase the Egyptian history. They painted over hieroglyphs. They tore down temples. If you go to Alexandria in Egypt, you can find a few places where it's a temple, it's a Roman temple, but you can see that some of the wall, some of the paint has kind of chipped off, and right underneath the paint is hieroglyphs. And it's interesting for me, because when I was there and learning that history, my history teacher always told me, like, this is stuff we mustn't do. Because if you erase history of a culture or a civilization, you're destroying humanity. And you're destroying, and the reason why you're destroying humanity is because we can't learn. We can't become better. We can't learn from our mistakes. You're destroying civilization. And that's what he told me, and I'll never forget it, because to me it was like, wow, the idea that this Roman Empire, who was so strong at the time, tried to do this. And I mean, if you go to Egypt, I don't know if you've ever been, but if you go and you go to these temples and you go to the pyramids, and you go to, you stand there in awe at what these people did back in the day. And for a civilization, another empire, to come and try and erase it completely is very sad. And yet people are doing it now. And that breaks my heart.
Yeah, but it's right when we do it, not right when someone else do it. Does it a taboo for thee, but not for me? And it's those types of double standards that needs to be pointed out. For example, another good example would be these protests and these marches, where if someone like Donald Trump has a rally, all the media says, "Oh man, how can he endanger people's lives like this and get them all together? There's a virus going around. People are going to die." But when there's a march for Black Lives Matter or whatever type of Democrat movement or leftist movement, then they're like, "Oh, this is so brave and support. We need to support this, and how incredible is this?" And it's so transparent. It's just so transparent, man. And but yeah, it's the we live in an age of double standards, and we have double standards coming from a lot of people, not just from people on the left, people on the right as well. Indulge in double standards quite often. And that's something I try to at least avoid. I know I will definitely do it unconsciously. I'm human. It's part of human psychology to do it. But I will try my best. I will at least commit myself to try and do it as little as possible, having double standards. But yeah, it's just sad to see this incredible polarization that we're seeing politically. But also not just that, the fact that because we live in this globalized world, whatever happens in the US kind of spills over to the rest of the world. Now you have like Black Lives Matter protests in South Africa, even though those Black Lives Matter protests aren't about the South Africans that were murdered by the South African National Defense Force or by the police, but rather about an American that died across the ocean. I mean, how disconnected from reality can you get, and how possessed by ideology can you get?
Yeah. It's. I'm wary to talk about the Black Lives Matter, because I agree with its initial creation, or its initial inception, of course, but I stand firm again when I say, and I have a video about this, and I encourage anyone to go and check it out. It's a video I uploaded, and I called it "I Am the We, a letter to my fellow South Africans," where I explain that we're all human, and we all want the same things, essentially, which is to, have a good life, work for ourselves, provide for our family, whatever it is you want to believe in, you can believe in, as long as you're not hurting anyone. And, just be friendly. And I mean, essentially, as people, we want to get along. That's the most messed up thing about it. At our core, we want to get along. Some people come and kind of screw that up, and try and influence people. But I think at our core, that's what we want. We want to get along because, again, like from history, it's shown that humans are social people, or social species. We like interaction. I think in the lockdown, that's kind of proven it. Like people, I don't know about you, but like on Mother's Day, my street, nobody listened to it. Nobody cared about lockdown. They were visiting their mothers. They were doing the thing. I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to say anything, because that just shows you that we value family, and we value those things. And in that video, I explain, and I say, like, if we want the same things, then why are we fighting? Why are we even doing this? And I think it's good to have these kind of conversations. I mean, even okay, so Quentin's still with us. Thank you for still staying with us, Quentin, and thank you to everybody who's watching as well. Thank you guys so much. But I like this, what Sideliner Opinion said. Racist, is the R word for whites. It's doing the same job as the K word or the N word for blacks. I tend to agree.
No, it's just become a slur for a white person in South Africa. I mean, you could see it with what happened with the Kiflis. When that ANC minister or whatever, or mayor, the ANC mayor said, because he made a funny song about NDZ, he's a racist. Look, he's like, he tweeted out, like, look at this little racist. Like, you're using that in the same way you would use a racial slur. You're just using that as like a slur for a white South African, and nothing he said was racist. He's just making fun of a politician. He's touching you on your studio because it's part of your party.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like what the Kifness did. He stood up to it. He called the mayor and made another follow up video. And
yeah, kudos to him.
yeah, I don't think the mayor was like, but so yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like these, and they're saying it in the comments as well. Sideliner again saying. People want to get along. Politicians want to conquer and rule. Yeah, look, I think there are rotten apples in the system, of course, but I do think that you do come across some good politicians. There have been in the past. There have been great politicians in the past. Are they all pure and right and just and righteous? Maybe not to a certain extent. But yeah, I think the powers that be, the elites, especially in South Africa, they love it when we're fighting. They love this fight. They love the fact that we're fighting about racial this and racist that and black and white because they're robbing us blind while we're not looking.
One of my favorite cartoons depicting that is there's like this king and his advisor standing on this tower, and they're looking down below at this angry mob, and then the king is like, "Oh, they look very angry. What are you going to do?" And his advisor says, "Don't worry, just tell the pitchfork oaks that you want that the torch oaks want to take their pitchforks, and tell the torch oaks that the pitchfork oaks want to take their torches, and then you just sit back and relax."
Yeah, keep them fighting. That's how it is. Well, Ernest, I see that we've hit the hour.
It's the sweet spot, man. I've realized that with my own show as well.
Yeah,
an hour is kind of where people's attention spans start to lose it.
Yeah.
So it's the perfect length from my own experience, and I see you've figured it out as well.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you know how it is. We are bombarded these days with so much information and so much content. That I even worry that like if we go for an hour and a half and people see this, they're like, do I really want to watch an hour and a half? The people seem to be tolerant of an hour, especially if they like the content. So, Ernest, I gotta say, man, I would love to have you back. I love these kind of conversations. I love our conversation tonight. We spoke about what we wanted to speak about, and then we just kind of let the conversation flow, and I really enjoyed it. I hope you'll come back. If there's anything you want to say to our audience watching, you're more than welcome to.
All right, no, thank you, firstly, Joe, for having me on. It's always nice. I just like seeing the YouTube ecosystem grow, man. I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it for the business. I don't run my YouTube channel like a business. You're not my competitor. I'd rather see you as another plant in the garden, as another piece of this forest, or part of the ecosystem. That's a better word.
Yeah.
Of the YouTube ecosystem, and I think it's excellent. The more voices there are, the more content there will be, the more cross-pollination of listeners and fan bases. I think it's excellent. I want to encourage more people to start doing what we're doing. And getting their views out there. And you need to understand, if you're going to start doing this, and I mean, your channel is still growing, it's going to be hard at the beginning. You're not going to become overnight famous. You're not going to get like a massive amount of subscribers and views immediately. But you just need to keep at it. Just keep going. I mean, I was stuck at 250 subscribers for at least 2 years. But now I'm in the 4,000s. But anyway, it's something. It's doable. You just need to keep at it. Just keep doing it. And like I said, don't expect anything to happen overnight. And thank you very much for having me on. And again, thank you for everyone that was taking part in the chat as well. Like I always say, it's really nice being able to read people's responses to what you say live and being able to respond to it. I think it's such an excellent thing. It's borderline magic.
Yeah, it is. Well, Ernest, again, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who is watching. Again, you guys are awesome. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. And like I said, the links to Ernst Van Zyl's YouTube channel, Conscious Caracal, is in the link below, as well as his Twitter handle. I encourage everyone, please, if you don't know this man, follow him. Very good content. And like he said, he encourages debates and conversations. So do I. So we hope to hear from you guys. And once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be talking with 2 other comedians on my channel. We're going to be talking about things that are happening now in South Africa. We might actually be talking about cancel culture as well in the comedy industry. And then Thursday is a comedian. I have a guest comedian. And Friday is roasting Remember, guys, if you do not have a thick skin for roasting, then don't watch it. It's not a problem. There's other content on my channel which you guys can enjoy. Once again, good night. Thank you, Ernest. Stay on the line. And I'll catch you guys at the next one. Thank you.